On this episode of the Motorsport Recently Show,
I'm gonna go a little historical anorak here.
Which will not be as a surprise at all.
he was already so good, you almost didn't need a Netflix series.
Don't repeat this.
Hello everybody, my name is Jack McKenzie, and joining me as usual on the mic is Caitlin Penny Commentary, our resident sim racing commentator, and not joining us this week is the wonderful Chris Whitfield, who is, well, we can basically just say he's doing whatever. We can make this up. What do you think he's doing this week, Caitlin?
I think he is skiing down the side of a volcano with the president of Mars.
That was quick that you came up with that. Well done. We're going with that. The wonderful Chris Whitfield is skiing down. What was it? Skiing down a volcano with the president of Mars.
There you go.
Okay, we'll ask him how that went. We'll ask him how that went on next week's edition of the show. But this week, you are listening to the Motorsport Recently Show. Caitlin, how are you? And welcome along.
I'm okay, thanks. I am slightly muddier than I was this morning. I stepped in a bog while walking my dog. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but that's exactly what happened. There was a field. There wasn't a sign there saying you weren't supposed to go in the field, so I'm like, that looks like a good place to let Sandy off her lead. So we went in the field down to the other side, and it looked nice and solid. There was a nice layer of grass, and I was like, yeah, that looks like a solid field. What I didn't realize is that the grass was floating on top of just bog water, and I stepped in and I went right up to the bottom of my shin. My shoes came off, and then I had to paddle back to safety.
Wait, was it really that deep? Like you had to swim out of it, basically?
I didn't have to swim. I am slightly exaggerating, but it was the top of my ankles, the bottom of my shin. So my foot was completely submerged. And yeah, I had to crawl back out carrying my disgustingly dirty shoes and socks, and I probably need new shoes now.
Did the dog end up in the bog? You're a poet and you didn't even know it.
The dog did end up in the bog. Luckily, she dried herself off by rolling around in the grass, because that's what dogs do. So yeah, pretty fun, but I knew I had to tell that story on the podcast today, so there you go.
Well, there you go. Thank you for sharing that your bog paddling experience.
I like how the last two episodes have just started off with my misadventures. Last week we had me getting pulled over by the cops, and this week we got me literally falling into a boggy water. So there you go.
On this episode of the Motorsport Recently Show, Caitlin falls in a bog. That'll probably be in the intro. Maybe. I don't know. I've had quite an interesting last few days. I've had, since we're doing this on a bi-weekly format, so every 2 weeks, always a little bit of debate over what that actually means. I have had an interesting couple of weeks. So we're recording this on Thursday, my time, Wednesday night. Actually, has it ticked over to midnight yet in the UK, Caitlin?
It just did, yeah, 10 minutes ago. Okay,
so we're both recording on Thursday now. So over the weekend that's just gone past, I was racing at the second round of the Sportsman Endurance Karting Championship out at the Orange Kart Club. With, of course, the 222 team in the sportsman class. It was 2 races, so a 4-hour race on Saturday and a 5.5-hour race on Sunday. And basically, it was a bit of an odd format. It was 2 separate races, but they combined the lap results at the end to get the point scoring. Don't entirely know how that works, but effectively it was 2 separate races because each of them had a separate grid start. So the Saturday's race was just the results from qualifying, and then Sunday's race was a reverse grid of Saturday's race results. So it was 2 separate races, but they combined the lap. I think they combined the lap counts to get the scoring, which is really a strange format. I don't really understand it. But anyway, we just turn up and drive fast. So
that is how they did the 1959 German Grand Prix at Avis. The one and only Grand Prix they held at Avis wasn't one race. It was 2 races spliced together.
I think I've got the poster of that actually on my wall. What year was that? Was that What year did you say it was? Sorry,
59.
59. Okay, so it's not Avis then, because I've got a Mercedes Grand Prix poster on my wall, and that says 1954. So
Yeah.
that's obviously wasn't Avis. That was the one. That Avis is the one with the two. It was basically just two corners at the end of two really long straights, wasn't it?
It's a highway with a massive bank corner and then a little fiddly hairpin. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that sort of makes sense. So anyway, weird format. We had a bit of a troubled start to the weekend. So we did some practice on Friday, and the kart went off the track, which is obviously not what you want to do.
Oh, no.
And what that caused was actually we noticed on Saturday morning, just before the race, that there was actually a crack in the chassis. So we had to get that welded before the start of the race, or before the start of qualifying. We got no practice at all on Saturday. Thankfully, we'd done some laps on Friday, but we got no running in the morning of Saturday. And then we tried to get the kart out in the first qualifying session. It didn't start, but thankfully it did, because the way they did qualifying was, I think they did it was weird formats all around this weekend, but they did 2 qualifying sessions. I think you took the best time from both sessions to get the good position. So my teammate, he didn't get a lap in his qualifying session because the kart didn't start. Thankfully, I got out for my session, which was in the wet, and I went third in class in my session, which I was quite happy with. The race on Saturday, we actually had a really, really good race. I managed to set the fastest lap for the class round Orange. Orange is quite the track, actually. It looks very simple, but it requires a lot of commitment. And if you make a mistake, you are going off in a big way, as I did last year, particularly through turn 4, which is a fast right-hander, which you basically have to set yourself up for on the exit of a very fast chicane. And if you go off there, you're going for a ride, which I did last year. But this year, I was able to set the fastest lap in my class, and we won the race on Saturday, which we were really pleased with. Sunday did not go as well. We had some technical issues, and we finished 7th in that race. So I think we walk away with 5th place points from the weekend. But after the year we had last year, getting a win in at least one of the races was a really nice feeling. And while unfortunately we don't actually walk away with any silverware, because they base the points off the overall position for the weekend, we know that we won a race, and provided no post-race dramas happens, I think we walk away with 5th place points for the weekend. So that was quite good.
So long as you don't get Ferrari'd.
So long as we don't get fried. Honestly, that is genuinely, it's a fear. It's actually always been a fear of mine doing these races. I've always sort of feared getting a really good result and then celebrating publicly and then getting disqualified or something happening post-race. And I just feel like I'd be so embarrassed. I don't know how some of these drivers do it. I remember Daniel Ricciardo in 2014 at the Australian Grand Prix, and he was on the podium in his home race and he gets disqualified. I would be so, obviously that wasn't his fault, but I would be so mortified if I was able to celebrate so publicly and then get disqualified after the fact. So as of right now, as the time of recording, I'm fairly certain we walk away with 5th place points for the weekend, which is really, really, really positive. And as some of you might know, if you know anything about the sort of geography of New South Wales, Orange is a bit further west than Bathurst. So if you're coming from Sydney, you go through Bathurst to get to Orange. And obviously I had to drive back. And I'd never done this before. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to drive a lap of Mount Panorama on my way back. Because as you may or may not know, Mount Panorama is a public road for most of the year, apart from a few race weekends a year. So I turn up at the track on my way back, and I just drove out onto the circuit. It feels illegal. It feels like something you shouldn't be doing. Like I was basically just about to drive out onto Mountain Straight, and I was just like, am I actually allowed to do this? And I actually had to double check that I am definitely allowed to do this, and I am definitely allowed to go in the sort of racing direction. I went out and I did a couple of laps of Mount Panorama. I'd never done it before. And then I called up Caitlin and Chris and I was just like, guess
Yeah.
where I am? And turned on my webcam and I was standing on the start finish straight.
Yeah, that was just my experience. I was watching GT World Challenge America, and then I just got a call out of the blue, and Jack's like, look where I am.
Yeah.
So Jack, I have to ask, you were racing at Orange. How were you able to tell the track apart from the runoff area and the barriers if it was all orange?
Great instinct.
Did you spend too much time there? Is that what happened to your hair?
Yeah, well, yes, I have had a haircut since last time, actually. It was getting a bit long, so I decided to get it cut. But yeah, no, it was fun driving Bathurst. Sorry.
And if you end up like getting in a shunt at Orange, and they bring out the yellow flags, and you're really, really angry about the shunt you were just in, are you seeing red under yellow at Orange?
Who knows? Tell you what, though, who definitely wasn't seeing blue was my teammate, because a blue light goes on at the end of the pit lane if there's a virtual safety car, and you're not supposed to come into the pit lane if you do that. He didn't see that and he came in. So maybe he'd seen a bit more orange, that actually would have been very helpful. But anyway, so no, it was a good weekend. Driving Bathurst was fun as well. I was basically driving in the family car, which is an Alfa Romeo Stelvio, and I put that in dynamic mode with the manual paddle shifters for my lap as well. I got to go back. I got to go back to Mount Panorama. I got to take my Spider next time I go, because my other one of our other cars is my 916 Alfa Romeo Spider twin spark, and I want to see what that's like on the mountain. So I got to go back. Unfortunately, we start off with a little bit of sad news, because probably one of the most substantial news stories that emerged from Formula One in the 2 weeks since our last episode. In fact, this probably broke the day after we'd finished recording the previous episode, and that was the passing of Eddie Jordan. So Eddie Jordan passed away on the 20th of March, 2025, after a battle with prostate and bladder cancer, which I believe lasted for around about a year. And of course, Eddie Jordan, if you don't know who Eddie Jordan is, I think you have missed out, really, because he was just one of the great personalities in the world of Formula One. So he is mainly known for founding Jordan Grand Prix, which ran in Formula One from 1991 to 2005. And he also ran several junior teams in various categories, including British F3 and Formula 3000. And this, I believe, Jordan was... Is it the only Irish F1 team that's ever existed, or has there ever been another one?
As far as I know, yes.
Yeah. So as far as we know, so Eddie Jordan was, of course, Irish himself, and Jordan, while based in England, was an Irish team. It raced under an Irish license, and several drivers of. Just to name a few drivers that have driven among this guy's junior ranks were Martin Brundle, Eddie Irvine, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Damon Hill, Jean Alesi, and Johnny Herbert. They're just a few of the drivers that drove among Eddie Jordan's junior ranks. And he obviously, of course, he famously gave Michael Schumacher his Formula One debut in 1991 in the iconic 7-Up liveried Jordan 191. Caitlin, thoughts on Eddie Jordan? First of all, as a team owner, what a career this guy had.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't forget that this was an era when Eddie came into Formula One, when manufacturers were getting bigger and bigger, and the reliance on making road cars was becoming much, much bigger. And Eddie really stood out as one of the last true privateers in Formula One. Even after Jordan stopped being Jordan, they still remained that sort of privateer spirited team through their Midland and Minardi and Spiker days. But yeah, Eddie Jordan was a massive character. He was eccentric. That's the word for him. we are really starved for that kind of personality, that sort of person who you never quite know what to expect from. I remember seeing Eddie Jordan for the first time when I was watching the BBC Formula One coverage back, over 10, 15 years ago now. And he would always bring something big. He was the kind of character who loved predictions, and his predictions were always fiery and seemingly often came true as well. He was almost like the Nostradamus of Formula One, predicting, massive things like Sebastian Vettel to Ferrari and, this driver to win the world championship and that driver to go here or whatever. And he would always make it so... He would always provide it in such a big, bold, brash way that you'd kind of be swept in with the emotion of it and go, oh, Eddie, you're great and all, but that's not actually going to happen, is it? And then it did, because he knew his stuff, he knew his stuff. So, yeah. It's a big loss to Formula One, and I think that Eddie will certainly be remembered for a lot of different reasons.
Absolutely, and I think you touched on this a little bit, that about how eccentric Eddie was. I feel like Eddie was absolutely the embodiment of his era of Formula One, when it was probably at one of the absolute peaks of its glamour, of its coolness. He was outspoken. He was just an amazing figure in the paddock. I was actually thinking about this a little bit. Who's maybe gotten close to Eddie Jordan? I think maybe the closest in terms of this sort of personality as a team owner that we've had would probably be Gunter. But even then, I think Eddie Jordan just stands alone as this hugely eccentric and hugely interesting personality that actually made the Formula One paddock more interesting just by him being there. An absolutely amazing human being. He was, of course, a team owner. We've touched on this a little bit as well. But he actually did some driving himself. So Jordan raced as a driver in such categories as Formula Ford, Formula 3, and Formula Atlantic. And I didn't know this because I was doing a little bit of research. He also participated in the 1981 24 Hours of Le Mans in a BMW M1. He didn't finish that race, but certainly an achievement to get on the grid, and certainly an achievement to drive such an iconic car. We've already touched on this a little bit. He obviously had a very impressive media career as well. You mentioned he was good at predictions, clearly much better at predicting things than we have historically been on this show. Way better, because some of his predictions actually came true by the sounds of it. But yes, an impressive media career, serving as an F1 pundit for BBC and for Channel 4. He also appeared many times on Top Gear, as well as hosting the Formula for Success podcast with David Coulthard. I will say on Formula for Success, I listened to a few episodes whilst it was running. And in that show, I think you get a really good idea for the type of personality that Eddie Jordan is. Outspoken, extremely interesting and wonderful to listen to as well. But yeah, I think we sort of look back on the career of Eddie Jordan as an exceptional team owner, an underdog, as running a privateer. Obviously he was only, I'd say, partially a factory team for a while. So I think in 1995, Jordan signed up for the Peugeot factory. They took on Peugeot factory race engines for their cars, but I don't think they weren't really 100% a factory team, is my understanding.
Yeah, because I looked up that privateer spirit. They knew that they were the underdogs, and they truly played that role. I think the best example of that, you mentioned with the Peugeot engines, but a few years after that, when they had the Mugen engines, they really hit a little bit of form. Of course, getting that first win with Damon Hill in '98. There's that famous video of Eddie Jordan hopping down the pit lane, in his own words, like a leprechaun. And then, of course, 1999, when Heinz-Harald Frentzen took that car to third in the World Championship, fought with the likes of Schumacher and Coulthard and Hakkinen, right to the end of that season. And there was a genuine chance, okay, not a huge chance, he was always going to be the underdog, but there was a genuine chance that he could have won the World Championship as recently as the penultimate round of the season. And if things had gone a slightly different way, then who knows what could have happened. But even though no one truly believed that Frentzen was going to win the championship that year, I bet the majority of people watching probably wanted him to. The majority of people watching were probably cheering him on. And that's because Jordan just had that vibe to them, you know? They were the good guys. They were bubbly and fun. They weren't a massive recognizable corporation. They were out there because they were racers who loved racing. And Eddie Jordan, you know, he would have been the first to admit to you that he was a better businessman than a racer. But truly, he had a racer's spirit. You know, when he was driving himself, for example, I read that he had a nasty accident in Formula Atlantic in 1976 and smashed up his legs. He was on the sidelines for the best part of a year and then returned because he loves racing. And then, of course, when he eventually ran out of finances to go racing, he continued on as a businessman, built those finances back up again, and then worked his way as a team owner from Formula 3000 all the way up to Formula One. So even though he may not have had the ability as a racing driver himself, he was a true racer. And that is what I've got to say for Eddie Jordan today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you mentioned Jordan as being the good guys, and I think Eddie Jordan's kind of fun personality, it sort of was evident in the team itself. So as you mentioned, that Jordan were the good guys during Heinz-Harald Frentzen's effectively championship campaign, although he didn't obviously win it. I think the cars were yellow at that point, weren't they? This was the bright yellow paint scheme that they ran for effectively the latter half of their time in Formula One. But they also had nose arts on the car. That you didn't see, you just didn't see that. I was reading, it's just like it became a thing in Jordan that they ran nose arts on the car. And I think that really does. I think sort of Eddie Jordan's personality, it seems to have leaked into the team itself, and it's just an expression of fun. It's an expression of coolness, and it's an expression of the underdog spirit, so to speak. I think what I will say to cap off Eddie, because I feel like we could just dedicate an entire episode to Eddie Jordan. I feel like there's so much to unpack. But I think if you need to know how important this guy was in the world of Formula One and how important he was to people, just look at the outpouring of tributes from so many people in his life. Everyone from Chris Harris, David Coulthard, and various people, Martin Brundle, and various people in Formula One. He's so important. He was so important for so many different reasons, and I think he will be sorely missed in the F1 paddock. And to be honest, even what I'm saying now, that's nothing that other people haven't already said. Because I think that's such a universally shared opinion on this man, just how important he was for the sport.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that's a good thing to end on with Eddie Jordan. So rest in peace, but we will remember him as a legend.
Rest in peace, Eddie Jordan. 30th of March, 1948 to the 20th of March, 2025. Absolutely will be sorely missed. We do have some other Formula One news. The other biggest news story that's emerged from Formula One recently was changes over in the Red Bull paddock. So after just two races, well, first of all, we had the Chinese Grand Prix, which was quite an interesting race. That was a McLaren 1-2 with Oscar Piastri winning that race and Lando Norris finishing in second place, nursing that car home with brakes fading towards the end, doing very well to hang on to that one. But this story of it the Chinese Grand Prix is, of course, a part of this Red Bull story. So Liam, at the other end of the grid, Liam Lawson, in his second start for Red Bull Racing, had an absolutely terrible race. I think he finished last, did he not?
He was down there, yeah. He wasn't exactly last, but he did qualify last for the main Grand Prix. But he might as well have been last because he was a long way from the points, I'm afraid. In terms of the actual Red Bull drama, are we getting onto that now? Because I have some opinions.
We can do, although I do want to address predictions from last race because a stopped clock is right twice a day, and you were right with your prediction that...
I did... Wait!
Oh my goodness me!
Surprise!
It's a ghost! A ghost!
He's obviously finished skiing.
Skiing?
So, so we said that, first of all, this is the wonderful Chris Whitfield, who has just joined us, our sort of resident, all-encompassing motorsport expert. At the top of the show, we said that you were skiing down a mountain with the president of Mars, hence your absence. But clearly you're Oh, was it? Sorry, what did I get wrong?
Skiing down a volcano with the president of Mars.
Volcano, raising the stakes ever so slightly. That's where we said that you were.
Volcanoes ain't got nothing on me.
Oh, goodness me. But anyway, yes. Well, welcome along, Chris Whitfield. For context, we have started talking about the Red Bull drama now, and we were also saying that Caitlin, in terms of Caitlin's predictions, a stopped clock is right twice a day because she got the Chinese Grand Prix prediction correct.
Well, I mean... Okay, so obviously I do my top 5 predictions, and I'm never going to get those correct because Formula 1 is too unpredictable to predict the top 5 exactly. But yeah, that was the second time that I predicted Oscar Piastri for the win, second time in a row, I should say. Last time I didn't quite get it. It looked for a while as if he had a chance, and then he slithered off the road in the wet. This time, he freaking got it. So yeah. Well done, Oscar Piastri. It was a great race. Also driver of the day, in my opinion, although I also have to say Oliver Behrman and Esteban Ocon were both absolutely stunning in those hazards. But yeah, a fantastic lights to flag victory. Didn't put a single wheel wrong. I would also, if we're on the topic of the Chinese Grand Prix, I'd also like to give a quick shout out to my partner who woke up with me at 4 a.m. on the Saturday to watch the sprint race, just in time to visit, to view her first ever live Ferrari win, which, as you can imagine, she was very, very happy about. And, but yeah, and then of course went straight back to sleep because of course it was 4 a.m.
Yes. Actually, I will say it was quite nice to see Lewis Hamilton do well in the sprint race. It was nice to see a bit of Lewis Hamilton sort of proving that he's still got it, bringing that Ferrari home to finish first in the sprint. Mr. Whitfield's got something to say.
I think you'll find that when we did our predictions, and I think you'll find that I think maybe I won that because I said that it was going to be Sir Lewis.
Ah, but didn't you say Sir Lewis was going to win the Grand Prix? Or
yes, we didn't predict sprints.
But he did win.
Wrong.
But he didn't win a race during the weekend.
He did. So I guess half a point if we're doing points at all.
Okay, yeah, you get a 50% mark, Mr. Whitfield.
But I was right. I was right at least once.
Anyway, I had another shocker with the fantasy team because I forgot to change my lineup. So I had another stinky, very bad, and also my predictions were wrong. So really, I'm not doing well in terms of predictions at the moment. It's going quite badly. But anyway, yeah. So back to what we were talking about. So obviously, the Chinese Grand Prix was the final nail in the coffin for Liam Lawson, and only a second start for Red Bull, being demoted once again to VCARB. I think for a lot of people, this has raised questions about whether Lawson was actually given a fair go. I'm not so. I mean, the results were poor, yes, but 2 races, really? Was that long enough to assess him?
Okay, well, I'm about to express some opinions which will not be as a surprise at all. And to be honest, I reckon every viewer at home probably already has this opinion. Because when it comes to the Red Bull drama over the last few years, it's really not controversial at all. Literally everyone can see what's going on behind the scenes, that it is a toxic environment, that Red Bull don't protect their second driver or help them in any way, that Helmut Marko is an antiquated piece of rubbish, and I think that Lawson was absolutely not given a chance. And I also think that there is no reason to believe that Yuki Tsunoda will fare any better. So, yeah, I'm sorry, because, like, I'm saying exactly what every other YouTuber and influencer and content creator and even fan out there has already said. But the problem is not the drivers, it's the car. You know, if Sergio Perez, if Alex Albon, if Pierre Gasly can't get the most out of your cars, then Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda sure as heck can't. You know, there's no reason to keep feeding. It reminds me, have you seen that post from a few years ago where someone says, oh, coyotes keep eating my cats, so I keep going to buy new cats or whatever, and they're like, well, it sounds like you're just feeding cats to coyotes at this point. It's like that. We're just feeding Red Bull drivers to the Red Bull team.
I just like to point out we do not condone feeding cats to coyotes in this.
No, absolutely
and
not.
And also, we don't condone feeding V-carb drivers to the second Red Bull seat.
We do, however, condone petting cats and
Of course.
But not coyotes, because they'll bite your face off. But
yeah, try not.
Yeah, I knew it was going to happen. The whole Tsunoda going to Red Bull thing.
It's so predictable.
Lawson, I'm sorry, wasn't really given a fair chance to drive a, quite frankly, expletive-deleted car.
Yes. Thank you for taking the time to think about that before making me do extra editing work, Chris.
You're going to need a beep on this.
The funniest thing about this is that this is probably a blessing in disguise for Lawson. He is probably going to outqualify and maybe even outrace Tsunoda. And it just makes you wonder, what is the point of being a Red Bull Junior driver if getting to the pinnacle means your career just gets shattered?
That's what I was going to say. So if one of the things I wanted to bring up as a question is, if you were a Red Bull Junior driver and you were offered the seat, are you taking it? I think on the one hand, you have to put yourself in the shoes of a racing driver and say, well, you have the opportunity to get the best seat of what is theoretically one of the best seats in Formula One. But I think if you're looking at this and you see the success rate or lack thereof of people who have been teammates to Mr. Max Verstappen, surely you sort of say, well, what other opportunities are out there? Am I now on the phone to my agent to see if I can get a Williams drive, a McLaren drive, or even a Sauber drive? Because I'd quite like to stay in Formula One and not be completely embarrassed in the process.
I'm going to go a little historical anorak here. The whole Red Bull situation is a lot like, and I cannot believe I'm making this comparison, but Andrea Moda.
Okay.
For you see the second seat...
I see it.
For you see, the second seat is basically Perry McCarthy. Basically, they want to have one car, but they can't, per the Concord Agreement. So they have to be like, oh, fine, we'll build a second car. Oh, you, come drive it. And then we'll... Wait, what's that? Oh, you're in Q1? 2 minutes left in the session? It should be fine. Let's go out for a lap. Or, oh wait. Oh, you wanted me to put slicks on. That's the kind of shabby treatment that the second Red Bull seat gets. It's basically, it's the modern day Andrea Moda. It's...
Well, In fairness, I don't think the Andrea Moda was. I mean, this may be unkind, but I don't think the Andrea Moda car was designed really to be competitive for anyone at all.
I mean, it only
No,
made
any
one
seat.
Grand Prix by luck.
Chris has a point. There's a famous story, was it at Spa, where they sent Perry McCarthy out with brakes they knew weren't going to last a lap because they simply didn't have the ability to make two cars that would work.
I think
So
it was
they just
actually a
sent him out with a
steering column.
His steering column, something like that. They sent him out with a faulty car because they just didn't care. They knew he wasn't going to qualify, so they're like, if you go out and crash it, who cares?
They tried to kill him multiple times.
Basically, yeah. Well, if he had died, it would have been negligence for sure. But didn't they send him out on wet tyres on a slick track at one point?
Silverstone.
Silverstone. They didn't want to waste a pair of slicks on a driver who wasn't going to qualify or something like that. So, yeah, in all honesty, this does feel very Andrea Moda. Slightly less blatant because they can't get away with that nowadays. But to go back to your question, Jack, about if you're a Red Bull Junior and you get offered the main seat, do you take it? You kind of have to. Like, every driver comes in seeing this, or seeing these stories about how the car is built around Max and it's undrivable for everyone else, and they go, well, I'm the exception, I am the chosen one, I can do better, and then they get eaten alive just like Lawson did. But if you don't do that, I think the same thing happens. You get hung out to dry, basically, or you get dumped. I guess the thing you've just got to hope is that some other team picks you up from the ruins when you inevitably get spat out to dry. Like, Pierre Gasly ended up going back to the second team and having his career saved, and, then he went to Alpine.
He won a Grand Prix.
He did. Carlos Sainz went to Renault, and then McLaren, and then Ferrari, and then Williams. You had Alex Albon, who took a year on the sidelines, came back with Williams, and now, in my opinion, is one of the 5 best drivers in F1. So Formula One, or going to that main Red Bull seat, it can be a career killer, or it can at least be a career staller. And I think you just gotta take it, grasp it, and see what happens. And I'm desperately hoping that Yuki Tsunoda does well in this car, because, my goodness, if he doesn't, then Red Bull has nowhere to hide. Red Bull already has nowhere to hide. I'm sorry, I'm waffling. I get fired up about this because it's so obvious.
They have no
what's
other
happening.
drivers to put in. They have no other drivers. Like, they have no reserve. They basically have to cherry pick from their. They basically have to cherry pick from their junior programs.
Yeah.
Or their other teams. Like, they've got no one.
It would be Arvid Lindblad next. Yeah.
I've heard whisperings of Colapinto possibly being on a shortlist.
God.
But then again, let's face it, he's going to end up at Alpine before the end of the year.
True.
He's going to wind up at Alpine before the end of the third race. At this point,
they're pretty ruthless. They're pretty ruthless in Formula One these days.
They've
always been ruthless, but it's especially ruthless now.
It's like I always say, never discount the evil that is Flavio Briatore.
Oh yeah.
Much like you never discount the evil that is Helmut Marko.
Yep.
Or never discount the tenacity of Polish bakers, as you previously said on the show. That's got to go on a t-shirt. I want that t-shirt made. If this show takes off, we're getting that t-shirt made.
And have it signed by the Inter-Europol guys.
Yes, I like the sound of that. Yeah, I mean, I was possibly thinking that maybe Tsunoda could be the exception. I was sort of, looking back at Tsunoda's career, and I think especially early on in his career, he did remind me a bit of a young Max. Yeah. And apparently he's driven the current Red Bull, and he quite likes it by the sounds of it. So is there a possibility that he could be the exception to the rule? Maybe he is the guy that Red Bull are looking for.
Possibly.
I hope so, for his own sake. I really do. Sorry if I interrupted you there, Chris.
No, it's okay.
I hope so for his own sake, but I don't see any reason why he would be better than Sergio Perez. Sorry, go on, Chris.
I'm a fan of Yuki, and I really hope he does well, but Yeah, like it could either go one of two ways. He could wind up being like a Daniel Ricciardo type of driver at Red Bull in that second seat, who actually was good enough to carry the team on certain weekends. Honorable mention to Perez. Or he could be a Jaime Alguersuari or Sebastian Buemi or that kind of driver, where they just disappear.
Well, here's the thing. I think so. I think what we've established now is a lot of Red Bull's issues at the moment stem from the fact that the car is set up solely for Max. And I think that problem actually started after Daniel Ricciardo left.
Yeah.
Because in the early years, they were on level pegging because I don't think the car was really designed for either of the two. No driver was really given priority in terms of car design, at least not evidently, because they were both able to be competitive in that car. I think after Daniel Ricciardo left and the prodigy that was Max Verstappen was starting to emerge, that's where Red Bull's current issues really begin. And I think if Tsunoda fails, I think that might finally be the catalyst to make genuine change at Red Bull. Because eventually they're going to realize that if they ever want to win the Constructors' Championship again, they need to make a car that works for both of their drivers, not just one of them. If they want to win the driver's title, they might be onto something with this: set the car up for Max and hope for the best. But if they want them both to do well, they need a car that works for both of them. And you can't just fire people the second they join the seat.
Yeah, and realistically, we said these things. We said Red Bull's going to have nowhere to hide. After Albon, I remember complaining very loudly at the time, they're running out of drivers. What are they doing? And that was coming up to 5 years ago now. So they
5 years, wow. Oh yeah, it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, so honestly, we can say they've got nowhere to hide. We can say they've got to realize it now. They had to realize it half a decade ago. They had to realize it before that even. What's going on?
Isn't there a contract stipulation that was put into the Concord Agreement that says you're not allowed to have, I think there's a cap of how many drivers they can hire at one time. Ironically enough, it was actually put in place after Andrea Moda, because I think they wanted Bertaggia after the second race of the year, but they figured it was too soon. But they told them it was too soon, and they basically were forced to keep Perry McCarthy in the seat. Caitlin can elaborate a little bit more on that, but
I believe there is a limit on how many drivers you're allowed to have driving for a constructor over the course of a year.
Yeah.
I think that limit is 4. And yeah, that might well have been to do with the Andrea Moda team. With that being said, it didn't stop Sauber from mistakenly signing 4 drivers for 2 seats in 2015, sorry. But, that's a whole different story.
And how many people drove the Lotai in 1994?
Oh yeah. I think they used up their full 4, but anyway, that's might have been over that. Chris is counting,
Adams,
but that's neither.
Pedro Lamy. I just wanted to say.
Good
Philippe.
Lord, he's still counting.
I just wanted to reference Philippe Adams, but
Okay.
Whoever was hiring for those teams should really be responsible for creating sports car lineups, not Formula One, because
for sure.
they're somehow failing to count to 2 and overshooting completely.
The problem is in the 90s, sports car racing kind of didn't exist because
at least after 93. No, what was the last year of the World Sports Cars? 93?
93, yeah.
Yeah.
When Balestri basically said, you know what? We are not going to keep the sports car series. Go to Formula One.
That was a good French accent. That sounded pretty good. Although somebody in the comments might tell us that it actually wasn't. In the last episode, we titled it, Is Williams the Next McLaren? The title of this episode might end up being, Is Red Bull the Next Moda? That would be interesting. So that actually might be. So
that
this
reminds
show
me, I
might
should probably
end up
get some new shoes.
So really, this show is turning into what team is like another team in the modern era of Formula One.
Yes.
But I think we've basically answered every question. So was Lawson given a fair go? Not really.
No.
I also think he was definitely rushed into that seat as well. It was probably too. He probably should have done another season in VCARB. Is Yuki Tsunoda the right man for Red Bull? Maybe, maybe not. Remains to be seen. Not looking good though, given the success rate of his predecessors.
Watch Lawson win a Grand Prix before Yuki.
Well,
Then basically the Pierre Gasly effect, as I refer to it.
you bring up an interesting point, which is that Liam Lawson has the opportunity to do the funniest thing in the next race and absolutely thrash Yuki Tsunoda. But yeah. We also haven't mentioned the fact yet that the next Grand Prix is Yuki Tsunoda's home race.
Yes.
Will that spur him on? Will that put extra pressure on him? Will he crash in qualifying because of all the extra pressure? Who knows?
Yeah, no, there's that. But does this finally highlight the problems with the Red Bull car? Answer this one for me, guys.
Well, they were already evident.
There you go.
Car's junk.
I thought. Okay, that's a fairly good summary. And if you were the driver in the Red Bull ranks, would you want to take the seat? I think theoretically no, but in practice, given the temptation, we probably absolutely would.
Yeah.
Because that's it, like if we were racing drivers, yes, I think you kind of have to.
I'd sooner take a ride with Baikalis than the second Red Bull seat at this point.
Well, that's an interesting one because they currently don't have a car in anything. I don't think. Do they?
That's the joke.
Yeah, there you go. So, of course, you mentioned it's Yuki Tsunoda's home race next, which is the Japanese Grand Prix, and that means it's time to make predictions for that one. Who wants to go first?
I love the way you pointed at the camera, Chris. I don't know who you're pointing at.
One of you two.
Caitlin, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Okay, whatever. It's fine. Okay, so, as always, I've done my top 5 on Blue Sky. In 5th place, I have put Max Verstappen. I think the Red Bull team will have a lot of eyes on them this weekend. Do they have a special livery for this weekend, don't they? Or is that?
I think they do, actually. I want to have a look at this one again because I haven't really had a proper look at it.
I mean, in fairness, it was posted April 1st, so you'll be forgiven.
I was just about to say, I saw it, but I also noticed it was posted on April Fool's Day, so I'm still not 100% sure if it's true or not. But whatever the case, Red Bull... they'll have a lot of eyes on them this weekend for obvious reasons. Max goes well at Japan. He's done, honestly, I think was it 2021 he had like a 10-place grid penalty and still ended up dominating or something like that.
Yeah.
2021, 2022 and 2023 put on spectacular performances in Japan. So I would say... expect him to be good, but I think there are 2 teams who are much better at this point in time, and I'm sure you know what's coming after this. 4th place, I've actually put Oscar Piastri. I know people seem to think that McLaren is absolutely dominant right now and are going to be 1-2 at every race or whatever. I think that's mostly just trauma from the past, from like Red Bull 2023 or whatever. I still think Formula One is a bit closer now than it was before. And I think that even though Oscar Piastri is coming off the back of a race win, I think that this is going to be a season where the pendulum swings back and forth. 3rd place, I've put Andrea Antonelli. I know I predicted his first podium last time in China as well. This time, I feel it again, I think, maybe. 2nd place, I put George Russell. I think Mercedes is going to be very, very strong here. It seems to be a track that suits their characteristics, and I can just feel Mercedes doing well. And 1st place, no surprise, I've put Lando Norris, championship leader. I think he's going to extend that lead and make up for last time in China.
Yeah. That's a solid set of predictions. I've just, whilst you were doing that, I've just looked up the special Red Bull livery for the Japanese Grand Prix. And this is going to make things horrendously confusing because it looks a lot like the VCARB. So
It does.
Yeah, it looks, that's going to be horrific to keep track of, actually.
That's why I thought it was an April Fool's joke. Are you sure it's not?
I mean, it's on the official Formula One website. I mean,
oh my goodness.
I don't know. It looks good, but it looks like the V-carb.
Yeah, it does.
We need to get Lucy back on to rate it.
We're going to have 4 white Red Bulls on the grid this week.
I will say, though, talking of liveries, I know I'm going off a bit, but did you see the Haas one with the cherry blossoms?
Yes,
I did.
See, that's better. That's
beautiful.
a subtle little touch up.
They understood the assignment.
Exactly, and you mentioned the episode with Lucy. We did actually put Haas last in that episode, so
that would improve it. I think that the cherry blossoms make it better.
Yeah, I think they listened to us and they were like, "Oh no, quick, change it,
fix it, fix it." All right, okay, right. So here are my predictions. In 5th place, I've got George Russell. In 4th place, I've got Andrea Kimi Antonelli. So in my predictions, he is missing out on the podium ever so slightly, but I think it's going to be a really good drive for him. We're recording this on Thursday, by the way. Unless it's Chris, is it still Wednesday in Canada?
It is 7:59 p.m. on Wednesday.
Oh my goodness, he's miles behind. Anyway,
know,
right. Okay, so Kimi Antonelli in 4th. Oscar Piastri is going to be 3rd, I think. Max Verstappen is going to be 2nd, and Lando Norris, I agree with your prediction, Caitlin, is going to be 1st. To be honest, this one was these predictions were less methodical. I think I was just doing what I felt. It spoke to my soul, and that's the order I've come up with. But knowing my track record when it comes to making predictions, it will be completely wrong. Chris Whitfield, what do you think?
I'm gonna go a little bit bold.
Didn't do their predictions before.
I'm gonna go a little bit bold. Hamilton.
Is that 5th or 1st?
1st or 5th?
1st.
Oh, he's won it.
Hamilton.
Hamilton wins.
Norris, Piastri.
Yep.
That's your podium. Verstappen, Tsunoda.
Tsunoda. That would be incredible.
I mean, that would. I hope I can get this. If that prediction becomes correct, I hope I can get this episode out in time. Because if you get that right, it's going to make everything that we've said in this episode look totally ridiculous.
No, we haven't had any practice sessions yet or anything. This is complete speculation.
Yeah, so it will be good. Well, at the time of recording, I should say, because I sometimes can be quite late when it comes to these things.
Although I am predicting also another dark horse winner in Alessandro Nannini.
In what?
And I think
okay.
I mean, this was the opportunity I was looking for, and I'm going through. Ouch!
Ouch!
Talking about.
He is talking about the 1989 Suzuka or Japanese Grand Prix, where the two McLarens came together. This is the opportunity Senna's been looking for, and he's going through. Out, and then Alessandro Nannini came
goodness.
through. Exactly, and that was Nannini's only race victory, but very controversial circumstances that I'm sure you can all. I mean, I'm sure you know.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of. I've started watching the Senna series on Netflix. Actually, I've just done the episode on 1984 in Monaco, and I'm moving on. I think we're going on to 85 next. So,
did you ever watch the Senna documentary?
Yes, I did. Absolutely brilliant documentary. See, that's the problem with the Senna Netflix series. It came out after Manish Pandey's documentary, and to be honest, I know it's a different sort of format, but I don't really think it's as good. I mean, the Senna documentary was already so good; you almost didn't need a Netflix series.
The Imola and State funeral scene. I swear. Oh.
Yeah, they did that very well. I do think the Senna documentary kind of deified him a little too much, but I do think. I mean, I guess that was what they were going for, but yeah, I mean, watching that as a kid, I do think it was quite something, and it stuck with me. That was where I learned the F word.
Don't say it here, please. Otherwise, you're going to make me edit things.
What? Fun.
Okay.
It was in the scene after he won the 91 Brazilian Grand Prix where he was in serious pain because he'd done the whole last 15 laps in 6th gear or something.
Wasn't
and
it
he was
fifth?
swearing over the radio. And I was watching this as when did it come out? 2010? I'd have been an 8-year-old.
I've got it up. So it came out on the 7th of October, 2000. Oh no, actually, yes, the 7th of October. It came out in. Hang on.
What?
What? Wait, where is that? Suzuka is in actual. It says it came out on the 7th of October 2010 in Suzuka Me.
Yep, that's
So I'm
Japan.
guessing.
Yep,
I'm
that's
guessing
Suzuka.
I
that
think
is-
it was
yeah,
the
that's where
first
it is,
screening
yeah.
it was
Must
released
be in
at the
Suzuka.
Grand Prix weekend.
But
Ooh,
yeah,
that
when
would
he's
make sense.
swearing and stuff on the in-lap over the radio, that was literally where I learned the F word. That was where I learned what it was. And Mum turned to me and was like,
Don't say that.
Don't repeat this.
Yes, don't repeat that now. Again, as I said, because
Yeah.
we're a no swearing podcast, at least for now. Maybe if we get really popular and we'll eventually get to the point where we can say whatever we want. Okay, I think that just about does it for Formula One. Does anyone have anything else they want to say on any of that?
Oh, Yuki Tsunoda.
Okay,
Catchy.
let's move on to some sports cars. It's been a very Formula One centric episode, but we'll rattle off some sports cars, and we are getting on a bit, so we'll make it quick. There's been a few sort of changing around, well, a few announcements really. So our next sort of big event that we've got coming up is the Grand Prix of Long Beach, which is of course the IMSA and IndyCar joint race weekend. In the IMSA race, we've only got 2 of the classes, as we mentioned on the previous edition of the show. We've got the GTP class, and we've got just GTD AM, effectively, so just the regular GTD class. And we have a new entry for that class. So AO Racing are taking the red stickers off the famous Rexy Porsche and putting on some green stickers. Those stickers say car number 177, if I have written that correctly, provided I have not made a mistake. I believe that is the correct race number. And they are actually fielding a car in GTD for that race weekend, and the car will be driven by Lawrence Vantour, who is of course a Porsche regular. If you've watched any sports car racing at all, you'll know who this guy is. And he will be joined in the car by Johnny Edgar, who is coming over from AO's LMP2 team. That is of course Spike the Dragon, and they will be fielding a car in GTD for the race weekend at Long Beach. We mentioned that is, of course, not the only new car that's joining that. Last time we mentioned that Robert Wickens would be driving alongside Tommy Milner, was it?
Yep.
That was his teammate, yes.
Also, there's a third one. The number 89 Lexus that won last year is back.
Is that a Vassar Sullivan
That's
car?
the Vassar Sullivan car. Yeah, it's the basically it's the wild card. I like the wild card entries at Long Beach because, of course, for those that don't know, the 2 classes that are running at Long Beach are the GTPs, of course, and GTD. Because some of the pro lineups, because there's also pro lineups, because the pro class is not running there. Some of the teams are actually running either factory or factory adjacent cars in the GTD class. So you mentioned Rexy with let's be honest, a stacked lineup. Let's be honest, because just stacked to the gills with talent.
Lawrence Vantour and Johnny Edgar, Alan Poe, as previously referred to as on this show. Yes, so who's in the Lexus, by the way?
The Lexus, let me see. We are checking.
Gotta be said. Oh, Frankie Montecalvo and Aaron Telitz in car 89.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty standard stuff for Vassar Sullivan Lexus.
Oh, I got the entry list here.
That was so Frankie Montecalvo is the 12's endurance driver.
Yeah.
But they've made, and then Aaron Telitz, he
is in the 14 usually.
So he's in the pro car.
He's in the pro car.
So basically, they've taken the 12's endurance, one of the 12's endurance drivers, and then they've taken one of the pros out of the out of the 14, and basically made a lineup. And my guess also is that number 14, so that 89 car will probably just be the 14 chassis with an 89 sticker on the side of it. That would probably make the most sense.
It's essentially what they did last year when they won.
Yeah.
Basically, they had the pro driver, the gold ranked driver, and the endurance driver in the lineup. 177 has, of course, the Johnny Edgar from Spike, and a man who's been upside down more times than me, and won upside down more times than me, Lawrence Vantor. And the other one, well, I had to make that reference. I had to make the Macau reference.
Was that was he driving? Was that when he was driving for Audi?
Yeah, he was driving the Audi.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Was it 2018? 2018, I think.
Yeah. Where he actually won the race and somehow managed to invert himself.
But yeah, no, I think the wild cards are obviously, as you mentioned, great idea for Long Beach. And I think in terms, I think a lot of people focus on the endurance rounds as kind of the jewels in the crown of the IMSA calendar. But I think Long Beach is one of the special events really what it is, it's IMSA's Monaco, except with a slightly better track, really.
Yeah. It's
IMSA's Monaco. It's IndyCar's Monaco as well, actually.
It's also the first race for the I believe it's the first race for the new for the Sprint series.
But that's been around for a while, though.
No,
hasn't it?
First race of the season for the Sprint series.
Oh yes, first race of the season for the Sprint series. And also, I think there are teams that just do sprint rounds.
Yeah.
If I'm not, yeah, they are. So there
Which
you go.
Actually
there's
is Robert Wickens, if you can believe it. He's actually in there.
There we go. And I reckon we'll see Robert Wickens full-time in IMSA eventually. Fingers crossed. That would be really nice. But, okay, so that's the IMSA news. I've got to touch on some Le Mans news very quickly. A few weeks ago, we did our WEC entry, not WEC entry list, sorry, the Le Mans entry list episode a few weeks ago. And at the time that we recorded that, they hadn't filled the final seat in the number 4 Porsche Penske Motorsport car. This is, of course, the IMSA lineup. They now have finally done that, and they have chosen Pascal Wehrlein as their driver for their final driver for Le Mans, joining Felipe Nasr and Nick Tandy. The XF1 driver is currently a Porsche factory driver in Formula E, and he first raced the 963 for the first time this year with JDC at Daytona. So now he's been given the full factory call up and will be driving the IMSA attendee effectively at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. So there you go. We now have an answer to that question. And that completes the Porsche lineup.
Solid choice.
Concludes us. Solid choice, really.
Solid choice, because he did a good job driving the banana boat this year at Daytona, and although some may say like Daytona's an outlier, but it's still seat time, and also JDC runs a great outfit as well, so they definitely know their way around a Porsche, and that's a solid get for Pascal.
It certainly is, and I think this is a guy. I think he's done well in Formula E, and it's good to see him get a factory call-up to such a prestigious event in this way, and I think that's absolutely great for Pascal Wehrlein. That now concludes the sports car news, which means it is now time for what?
Miscellaneous stories and points that we missed, and therefore covering now. TM. Bing!
New jingle pending. We begin with some MotoGP news. Who would like to lead us through this one?
I saw the highlights. I think, yeah. So
you think?
No, I definitely did see the highlights. Marc Marquez is obviously the talking point of the series with his return to form after so many years, lounging around at the back or falling on his back, and he has been doing very well this year. But unfortunately at COTA, he had a crash from the lead in the wet. It was a very tricky day. Practice and qualifying was even wetter, but it was a little bit damp in the race. And he went down from the lead. He was perfectly okay, but the bike ended up missing one of the foot pegs, basically one of the things that keeps your foot from the hot exhaust. And he decided to carry on anyway. He was like, I can do this, ain't no skin off my back. So he carried on for a little bit anyway, without the foot peg, until it looked to get just too uncomfortable for him, and he pulled it into the pits, which is perfectly understandable.
Man also had a broken windscreen.
Yes, he did. It was Pecco Bagnaia who ended up winning the race, and I think he's now leading the championship, but I'm not keeping up well enough to know. But yeah, Francesco Bagnaia won it. Alex Marquez still finished second, and then it was Fabio Di Giannantonio, sorry, who finished in third position. Just call him Digi. There you go. And Bagnaia is not leading the championship. He is third, and it is Alex Marquez who's leading the championship now, having finished second in all 3 of the races and all 3 of the sprint races up until this point.
And I watched that. I watched the MotoGP race live at COTA, and I have to say, pretty good racing throughout that. And before, and Marc Marquez trying his damnedest to try and wrestle that bike around and go through the field as he tried to was an inspired drive, and was an inspired ride, I should say. But unfortunately, when he came in, I basically said after he retired that I was like, well, I guess he's going back to his iron lung. So
yeah.
He's gone back to his iron lung for the weekend.
Yeah. You know who I am impressed by? Agura. So, obviously, this is a season that is very much dominated by Ducatis. Agura is a rookie on an Aprilia, and he is currently 6th in the standings overall, behind 5 Ducatis. That's impressive. That's pretty impressive. I think he did very well. Okay, he wasn't quite as breathtaking as he was in Thailand, but I think he did well to stay up in the conditions in COTA, and I think that it'll be really interesting to see how the rest of his particular season goes, and if he's able to keep up with the other riders and even the other rookies, because Aldeguer was having a really good race until he went down as well.
Was that the guy on the throwback Castrol Honda livery bike?
I can't remember, but Firmin Aldeguer was well up in the top 10.
Oh yeah, it was Aldeguer. Yeah, he would.
Yeah, and then he went down. But yeah, Agura, 6th place overall, top ranked non-Ducati rider at this point in time.
Well, there you go. We had some IndyCar racing happen since the last time we did an episode of this show, and we were racing from Thermal, and it was quite an interesting end to this particular race.
It was definitely.
Oh, we've lost Chris. Oh, hello.
That was a reference.
What did you do?
Well, you see, at Thermal, and a lot of people didn't remember this.
Broadcast problems.
The broadcast.
Oh my god!
There was a short in the broadcast truck, and it just went.
I'm not sure how well this is going to come through on the video.
I have literally no idea. I think, to be honest, I don't think...
Keep that in. Keep that in.
We'll try.
We'll see how it translates.
I don't know how it translates. Yeah.
But I think, to be honest, Chris, you really do operate on a completely different, higher plane to like most mortal people. But anyway, yeah. So aside from the broadcast issues that happened at Thermal, it was a brilliant drive from Alex Palou
again.
Again, really. I mean, for anyone who doesn't follow IndyCar, Palou is just kind of IndyCar's Verstappen, really. He just goes out and wins everything. But the McLarens of Christian Lundgaard and Pato O'Ward did make it interesting for him. So in the closing stages of the race, I believe Alex Palou was on the soft tires.
Yep.
Fighting his way through the two McLarens who were both on the hard tire. Christian Lundgaard put up an absolutely brilliant defense against Alex Palou for as long as he could. He got through. And Palou was eventually able to track down past Pato O'Ward and then extend, I think it was about a 5-second gap by the end in the space of like 10 laps. It was unbelievable drive from Alex Palou. So well done to him. And he now leads the championship convincingly. He's almost got... He's not even too far away from having double the points of the guys of the two drivers behind him. Unbelievable.
Is it too late to say it's pullover?
I think it is. It's pullover already. It really is.
No,
I think
my thoughts, guys. I have a bit of a thought.
Yep.
While it was a decent race
for thermal,
Thermal does not belong on the calendar. I've said it before, I'll say it again till I'm blue in the face. Shouldn't be on the calendar. There's also no excuse for a 3-week gap in the between races, and another 2-week gap after that between Thermal and Long Beach. There really is no excuse at this point to have that kind of gap. Do I think Thermal belongs on the calendar? Absolutely not. Even though like the first race was a gimmick, basically a 2-hour ad for Thermal Club. The second race was better ? But it just it's very listless. Like it's got no the circuit itself has got no flow. And if they come back in 26, apparently it's rumored that they might actually go to the longer circuit, which is even more tedious. Barber Motorsport Park, it ain't. I'm just putting it out there. VIR, it ain't. Because people actually attend those races. And also, I'm gonna get on my soapbox here. The $450 price, and this is my last story because I have to go in a few minutes, but
okay.
The $475 starting price for tickets, I'm not kidding. Wow. Starting at $475. General admission.
Isn't that like over twice what Indy costs?
It's about 10 times as much. Because I looked it up. General admission, which is between turns 3 and 4 at the Indy 500, for the single day, is $50. $475 is...
Why is Thermal Club so expensive?
Because the track is basically just a club circuit. It's basically just a housing development with a racetrack around it. For rich people.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be on the calendar, but it's better as a testing circuit.
Yeah.
We talked about this off the air, just Chris and I after the show, and we realized that the ticket prices for Thermal were actually within Formula One territory and actually exceeding the ticket prices of Formula One.
Like what was the one we saw? Like we compared it to Coda, where it was like
I think it was Coda, yeah.
Where it was GA was like $375.
I can't remember, but I remember it was a lot more than most IndyCar races. Caitlin, run us through some GPVWC, please.
Gladly! This is my one opportunity to slot in my sim racing championship that I commentate that literally no one but me here actually cares about. But yeah, GPWC, Awesome stuff. We had the Turkish Grand Prix at the weekend. It was the first race of the year where we deviated from the Formula One calendar. We went back to Turkey, where Formula One hasn't been since 2021. Jan Granqvist has won it again. That's his second victory in a row and 2 out of 2 at the start of the season. But second place was a little bit less expected. It was actually Loic Mounier who had to miss the first round of the championship due to a power cut, I think, or something like that. Turned up at round 2. I was warned to look out for him, and I was right to be looking out for him because he did amazingly. Actually started the thing right at the front, and ended up getting his first GPWC Super League podium with second place. And Matthew Williams was third. I think he's only been on the podium like 4 times as well, so good job from him. And really entertaining race, back and forth. We had a couple of little sprinkles of rain as well, and for a little while it looked as if everyone was going to have to go onto intermediates, but every single driver took a gamble and stayed out, and it paid off because the rain stopped. GPWC, it's always worth watching. I promise you will not regret it. And the next one is the Japanese Grand Prix, which is... as I bash my microphone, sorry about that. The Japanese Grand Prix will be on Thursday the 11th, so don't miss it.
I think I've got to start watching VWC, actually.
Awesome.
We're gonna cap off, not with a listener comment, it's just actually a reference to something that I was supposed to reference on the last episode of the show but didn't get around to. So Robin Tails Fighter, regular contributor to the show.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show. We've mentioned a couple of times on here that he has a couple of stop motion racing series on his own YouTube channel, and I think we might have previously touched on the fact that there was actually going to be a Triple Crown Racing liveried 86 in his Toyota GT86 series. And since just before the last episode of the show came out, he sent the photos of that car to the Triple Crown Racing Discord server. And I think it looks fantastic. I think he's done an absolutely superb job with this car. The funny thing is, I think I might actually have the means to make this car in real life, because I've got a mate whose dad owns a blue GR86. So maybe we get some TCR stickers made and we make this car in real life. Anyway, Robin, if you're listening to the show, it looks fantastic, absolutely well done, and I'm interested to see how well this car does in your stop motion series when that eventually arrives.
Also, if you want to come on, just let us know. Just basically drop us a line and we'll have you on, because
we'll make it happen. That's it.
Let's make it happen.
Anyway, I think that just about does it from us. My name has been Jack McKenzie, and joining me on the mic, as usual, has been Caitlin Penny Commentary, our resident sim racing commentator, and joining us slightly late, but getting there in the end, was the wonderful Chris Whitfield, our in-house motorsport expert. Please leave your likes, comments, subscriptions on both platforms, YouTube and Spotify. We could use a little bit more Spotify activity. Please leave a 5-star review if you haven't already done so. But that is just about it from us. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
I'm going to Snetterton next weekend. Ta-ta.
Let's go. Ta-ra.